All right. All right, and it's another Monday night. Thank you guys for joining this little campfire as we go through another TTRPG talk session. We had Vampire Masquerade in the last episode. I hope you guys were able to catch that. I know it was pretty late. We started pretty late, around 11. Special thanks to Seth for putting up with the slight late schedule. But we were able to discuss about Requiem and the P5 comparisons, and it was pretty fun. And today, as we continue the tradition of talking in the floating desks who we have on our desk today, um, I believe this is the first time I'm officially meeting them. I've actually seen them from afar and admired them from afar, but right now is the first time I'm actually gonna get to talk with them, sit down with them, and have a lovely discussion about their TTRPG today. But for now, let's give a warm give a warm welcome to momatoes. Hello, or do you prefer to be called Bianca on the, or do you prefer momatoes?
Maybe momatoes, yeah.
Okay, okay. Hello. So welcome to the stream.
Yay.
Thank you for the time to join us in this lovely campfire. This campfire with the desks. um, so yeah. So I actually want to give a shout out to Paolo, who like, I think it was 2 weeks ago when suddenly I woke up, saw my Facebook, suddenly there's a new GC, and it's like DenMother plays, and then ARC, and I was like, what? What's this? And oh, okay. So I wanted to talk to my friend Bianca about their new system, and I was like, oh, cool. Because I kind of tend to have this tendency to look for new TTRPGs and always out for that. So I'm happy that he got us to meet. Serendipity. So yeah, super happy for that. Kind of wanted to get people, like, at least in my little small quaint circle, to get to know you first. First things first, I know this wasn't part of the list of questions, but I'd like to throw questions that aren't usually in the list. How did you get the name Momatoes? Like a very unique
Oh.
name.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't remember what year it was, but Final Fantasy 9 released on the PS1, and my brother was playing it, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. There are Muggles in there, and they're helping out this character called Eiko, like cooking stuff, and I think preparing, I forget what it is, but one of the Muggles was named Momatose. And then I said, "Oh, that sounds like a nice name. Okay, it seems nobody has used it yet, so I guess I'll try claiming it for like Facebook or email." Then it turns out I had misspelled it. That's why nobody had taken it yet, because it was supposed to be momatose and not like tomatoes. So well, now that has stuck with me for over 8 years. So I guess that's permanent now.
Yeah, like it's the misspelling to swap letters. Oh, that's so cool. At least it's very unique though, because I was like thinking, are you like the mother of tomatoes? Is that why like you're
Oh
calling
wow.
yourself? I'm the mother of tomatoes. So it's really cool. That I do like Final Fantasy. I have, unfortunately I haven't gotten to play the ninth one. I've only gotten through
Mhm.
the eighth one, the seventh one,
Ooh.
and then I jumped to 10th. I tried 5 as well, but it's only on emulator. So I
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
8-bit. It's like a drastic change from like 8-bit, and then suddenly these
Yeah,
3D
suddenly
characters.
3D. What the heck? He was jumping out of a train.
Yeah,
Whoa, there's
yeah,
polygons.
yeah. Those are like the graphics. Oh my god, they look so pretty. Even if it's like, if you look at back at it now, like the pixelated faces. Back then, that was like, oh
Oh
my
yeah,
god, kick-ass graphics.
cutting edge. Yeah,
So, more about you, and definitely want more people to know about Mama Toes. So, what? How did you get into TTRPGs? Like, how many years have you been playing? What systems did you play initially before you started making your own stuff?
Yeah. I guess ever since I was in high school, I always wanted to actually play D&D because I came across the Dragonlance novels from my brother. So it was like, oh, adventuring party, there is a half elf ranger, there's a wizard. This is so cool. I want to get into that. But even though I was in like a science high school, presumably it would be full of nerds, I was actually super shy in high school, so it wouldn't be until late college. Maybe I was already around 19 or 20 at the time when I met some people who were playing tabletop RPGs. But the first RPG I ever actually played wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. It was Legends of the Five Rings.
Oh,
Because my friends were like nerds for Japanese culture, so we were like, oh, let's be samurais and do samurai stuff.
before you started.
But ever since then, I've been having much more opportunities to play with more people, especially since here in Manila, there's been a couple of groups who have been very active in setting up gaming groups. So I was able to meet people who did Dungeons and Dragons, but who also introduced me to games like Powered by the Apocalypse or old school Renaissance games. Some of my favorites were, I guess they might be a bit niche, but like Macchiato Monsters, White Hack, The Nightmares Underneath. But these are super indie games, but I really love them as well.
Oh, that's cool. So your first, so since you mentioned Legend of Five Rings, what was your clan? I'm curious about your clan.
Oh, it was I wanted to be the Phoenix Clan because it was, oh, I'll be wise and very mysterious. But then turns out I resonated more with the Dragon Clan because it was mysterious in a weirder way, I guess.
Yeah, like the Dragon Clan's pretty cool. I've actually team Spicy Wings. We call the Phoenix Spicy Wings.
Ooh.
So it was really fun when I got to play it, but I didn't get to play the older editions. I only got to play the
Mm.
Fantasy Flight one, which was nice. I'm sad the
Yeah.
TTRPG side got short lived, but during its run it was fun. I got to experience the clans and the dice system was
Yeah.
really pretty. I like the dice. The Sakura designs. But yeah, it's nice that you didn't like. It's nice to hear you didn't really start in Dungeons and Dragons because it's rare for me to hear from people. I've only met like a few that started from a different system when they started out in
Ooh.
TRPGs. So
Mhm.
it's really cool that you started. I started in Pathfinder, so technically that's still
Whoa.
that's technically D&D
It's
still.
D&D's cousin. But
Yeah.
some people would call it the cooler cousins. I think you still maintain your cred.
Yeah, it's mostly math. It's Math Finder, but I managed to pull through with it, and I do like the systems that you mentioned, especially Powered by the Apocalypse. It's like one of my top three systems at the moment. I've been playing. I'm running a lot more games with that one.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so it is nice. It's cool that you've been playing for quite some time, and shout out to you, bro, for showing those books, piquing your interest. So yeah, there's like a listing, like when I checked out your website and like the description and the Kickstarter, which we'll get to eventually. You've
Mhm.
got quite a lot of listings, layout, or like you're a layout person. There's a capybara exclamation point, a writer, an artist. I was curious if which one first? Were you an artist first, a writer second, or were you a writer first?
Mhm.
How did you start?
Well, that's I guess kind of an interesting question as well. I mean, the immediate answer would be I started out drawing first. I really remembered like when I was in high school, my mom would be mad at me because the math books that we tried so hard to buy suddenly it all had weird weird animation, sorry, weird anime doodles all over it. It was completely defaced, but I would keep doodling in the margins of my notebooks and even in my textbooks. But the writing, I guess, only started developing maybe a couple of years later towards the latter high school and towards college. And of course, at that age, you kind of really want to explore your own stories, you want to express yourself, have your different ideas written out there in the paper. But I think maybe even before I started being more engaged in writing, even before I started drawing like really bad anime on the mat book, there's always been like I guess a desire to tell my own stories or to imagine different kinds of adventures. So even though the drawing technically started first, I felt like the imagining was technically what really happened.
Oh yeah, it's great that I think you started with the storytelling aspect through the medium of art and writing eventually. And I gotta
Mm-hmm.
say, I really love the art and the books. Like I can't recommend to people enough. Like guys, check out check out her books. Like it's like even Magus and Arc. It's a different style. It's like a collage and a bit of like I can't say rustic, but it feels like I'm looking at paintings sometimes. It looks like
Uh-huh.
paintings. Like the physical paintings when I look at it. So it's really pretty. I like pretty books. I like pretty art. So I really was gravitating towards your art, which I guess this is like another question I wanted to throw curveball question. Uh,
Ooh, oh no.
did you like because there are people who are self-taught, were you self-taught or like you started drawing and then you took up a course for drawing,
Mm.
or is this all self-taught for this one?
It's all self-taught.
Oh my
I really
god.
wanted to. I guess when I was in high school, I was applying to universities, like right. So parang I was looking at requirements for University of the Philippines Fine Arts, and you have to do like a portfolio or some drawing requirements. And then even then, I looked at the doodles at my math books, and I thought this isn't gonna cut it. It's just gonna be embarrassing for me. I'm just gonna go to engineering. So that's what my formal education has been. But even though that's been what my degree is, over the side I've been like looking up tutorials how to draw, even trying out Photoshop, and then it was a really frustrating process. But I guess that's really just part of the journey for self-learning.
That's really cool and inspiring. Like you did this technically all on your own. Like learning how to like it sometimes it's not something you can learn from schools. Like you can learn about layouting and stuff through courses, but it's really nice to hear that you like this is all you technically like a trial and error. Like I guess like another question is like how long did it take for you to get to that level? Like, how long did you feel like, okay, I'm in that level where I'm super confident about my layouting skills, my artistry skills? Like, how long did that take you? Like, how many years was that? Because you were juggling engineering, and in engineering is like a very tough course. Because like I think you
Yep.
guys have 5 years, from what I
Yeah, we
remember.
got 5 years
Yeah,
at
so
least.
and then there's like I'm not sure what branch of engineering you went to, but that's like a lot of years into it. Like how are you in that time like able to juggle that with your art? Like and how long did you
Yeah.
get to that level of layouting? Like how many hours did you pour into it?
Yep. I think for the self-learning process, what was important for me was, I guess I needed to have like extrinsic motivators. Like somebody had to ask me to do graphic design stuff because I was a member of a student org. We had a pubcom, and I was very b-boy. I was like volunteering to make the banners and so on. But looking back, they were actually quite horrible. The funny thing though is that I think when I was first starting to learn out, when I was doing banners for my org and then seeing it printed out and pasted in for our events, I was feeling, oh yeah, this looks kind of cool. I kind of like where this is going. So at the beginning, I was actually feeling a bit more confident. But then as I grew older, as I tried, applying some of those skills and seeing if my portfolio could match up to like what actual organizations were looking for, doing a bit of freelancing, that's when I was realizing that there is still quite a gap that I need to go to. And one other factor was I was also seeing inspiration from around the world, people from locally and also Southeast Asia. Social media was suddenly becoming a thing. Like, you remember Multiply and then Friendster and Facebook, and then people were posting this really beautiful art and graphic works. So I think for me, it's maybe the answer is that I was more confident that my portfolio could look professionally acceptable, maybe 2015. So that's like a long time, I guess, over 10 years, over 8 years. But that's like the professional surface level. Personally, I feel like I'm not yet at the level where I'm happy, or I feel like I've reached an end state. I feel like there's always gonna be the next step, the next improvement that I have to keep looking forward to as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, we're all works in progress, and there's always something to improve or like get better at. But your art's really good. Like, at right now, when I see it, it's just like, oh my god, you're pretty. Like, I would have it. Like, if I could have it on my wall, like put it on the wall, that'd be nice. Posters maybe, but maybe in the future. So now we got to know how you got into art, got into starting TTRPGs and the systems you played. So, what got you into game design? What exposed you to the world of making TTRPGs? Like, what was your gateway into game design?
I don't know if you know this RPG, but it is a one-page heist RPG called Honey Heist, where you play as bears and you're gonna steal something together. So I saw that a lot of my friends were also starting to get into game design. I'm not quite sure exactly why that happened. I think it was because things like itch.io were suddenly more easy to use and more popular, so everybody was starting to upload their RPGs. And I thought, oh, I could take this silly bear heist and then instead of bears, let's put capybaras on it. So I started putting capybara capers on it. And I actually looked at my dashboard for the entirety of my game design career last week, and I saw that the very first person who ever paid money for any of my games was the author of Honey Heist. So that was pretty fun. But from there, I guess it was also with Capybara Capers, I was playing around with some mechanics. Like, it's not just a heist. I added in some trust mechanics. There may be a traitor or there may not be a traitor. It's up to the fate of the random table. And from there, I guess it kind of sparked this desire to start exploring other mechanics, being a little bit cheeky with how the dice rolls or the random tables would work, and then applying that to different genres or even stories that people could tell.
Yeah, super nice. And yeah, it's really nice to hear that like the original authors of like existing like the actual creators would go out of their way, and that's actually a boost. That's super nice to hear. And you do have interesting mechanics in your systems, which I'd love to dive deep when we start talking about ARC and the extra RPG that we're going to be talking about today. But you did mention that you got exposed to like the international scene and as well as the local scene, at least in Manila, that you got exposed to different TTRPGs and the communities. Because from my certain standpoint, I was able to feel a change in just like a 5 year standpoint. I only started like 5, almost 6 years now in TTRPGs, but with somebody who might have played a lot longer, like how do you feel about the communities, the TTRPGs community now compared to before? Like in terms of like, is there more? acceptance and receptions? Is it easy for people now to create a game design compared to before? So like, how do you feel about the growing TTRPG community? So let's start first on the local scene, like your thoughts on it, um,
Mhm.
and the
Right.
comparisons.
So I guess I do have to qualify first that my experience with the local scene is the Manila scene. So I'm pretty sure in Visayas and Mindanao it's gonna be super different. But here in Manila, it was very lucky that there were a group of really invested gamers who wanted to run events for gaming. And because of that, there were regular events to actually connect the new game designers, try out different game systems, and I had a lot of fun because people were very collaborative. They really loved gaming, but when it did come to some things like what makes a good game design, what makes a good GM, there were a couple of like prevailing theories like, oh no, you should GM this way, or oh no, this is like the best, the preferred way to do game design. I'm gonna mentor you in it. So there were some subtle, I would say even power levels, like power users in the community. And I, it was ostensibly quite welcoming because they're always willing to help out people. But there was also like the sense that some of the newer ideas were kind of discouraged, like never verbally said na, oh, this is weird, let's not do that, let's just try the D&D old-fashioned way. But with the emergence of more and more game designs locally, it meant that suddenly we had more of a voice, more of an opportunity to explore and branch out into different areas and topics. So suddenly there wasn't really so much a gatekeeping on what constituted a good system, a good design. We were suddenly free, the gates were suddenly down. That's not to say that there aren't any it's all happy utopia, because there are, it's always like pockets of people, like from my context, people I mingle with, we are, I guess, fairly, it's been very rewarding. I really love interacting with them, lots of open ideas. But I have seen Facebook groups where people were like, oh, why are we using this content? The social justice warriors will start getting their way, and suddenly all the content will get censored. So uh, luckily I don't see it as often anymore, but it really still does exist.
Yeah, that is a good that's a good observation. Thank you for sharing that. Gatekeeping is really an issue, I think, in most hobbies, especially for people who have like it's a good point that Jay, one of the people that got to talk in TTRPG Talk, said um, it's like they kind of have a stake on things. Like they played this for a while, they were like the outliers or the outsiders, so they kind of feel like they have that kind of sense of belongingness and wanting to have that sort of elitism, which I'm glad is being broken down by exploring different
Yeah.
systems. The more people, the more there are open doors to other games, the more there's more different play styles. And
Mm-hmm.
even as recent as at least from my experience, even as recent as 4 years ago, there were still people who kind of say this is the way to play a game, which
Yeah.
isn't really fun in the long run because like as long as people are having fun, that's always like the general rule of thumb. You kind of let people have fun. So it's nice to know that there
Yeah.
are more voices now for different TRPGs. Though I will feel even at the present uh, that there's still there's still a hard it's still hard for some people to try different things, like especially if their gateway
Yeah.
was a certain system, which
Mm-hmm.
is understandable. Like there are systems like we'll thank 5e for opening doors to many people to try out TTRPGs, but there's the but in a sense that um, there should be openness to try new things and not to get set in that because when you get set in a certain system or a certain kind of play style, you kind of end up thinking that's the only way to play. So,
Yep.
yeah, that is very. That's still something we need to work on as a hobby, as a community, as a whole. But it's nice to know that there's voices now for different kinds of play styles, different kinds of TTRPGs. So you mentioned the local scene. What about the international scene? What have you observed so far
Yeah.
um, with like the TTRPG community internationally, or at least in? I guess a more specific question is like, have they been more open to like different kinds of storytelling internationally?
Yeah. I think that's a good question. Really, from what I've seen, it was more of not that they were more welcoming, but that they were more of them. So even though there's still a lot of pushback against like the combat wheelchair, I'm gonna come back to it as an example forever because I was super shocked at how many people hated that. But even though there are still people who like resist more progressive ideas, there are also more others who were open to exploring different things, different ideas. And one thing that I really wanted to, I guess, always keep as a lesson to myself is that thinking of the international community is kind of super reductive because when you the default is when you say what's the international scene like, but really the assumption is what you're talking about is what's the US scene like. Because I've met people, I was super lucky to meet people from like France, from Latin America, even from Italy, and they're also international, but they also have their own unique cultures, I would assume unique game dynamics. But and for me it's really important when I try to conceptualize the RPG community outside the Philippines that it is super reductive to just like box them into one kind of community style. And that has kind of made it healthier for me to deal with things like hot takes, Twitter discourse, because then I could just think, oh, it's just them. It doesn't mean that everyone's like this. There's still lots of really wonderful people out there.
Yeah, that's good. And I do agree with the I do agree with the different kind of cultures in the international scene that a lot of people tend to gravitate towards how would the US think of this, or how would like this particular international group would handle it. But there are different countries, different people playing the game differently, and culture really plays a factor in the reception of games. Even in our own place, just to use an example, like Mindanao specifically, or like even in Davao, even something as progressive as Davao, they were very. It's very hard to find at least families that are very open about TTRPG. It's considered a rich man's game, which frankly
Yeah.
isn't really the case. Sure, the books might be expensive, but it's something you can pick up online, the sources at least, and be able to play it. Oh, sorry for the phone. But more or less that kind of scenario where the scene is like the culture of being like you only make friends with whatever group you're in plays also into how
Yeah.
people are receptive about communities. The conservativeness also plays into like, oh, the concept of fighting demons makes you evil.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's nice to consider that, and at the same time, it's also good to localize because um, I do think like I've had more appreciation of like the localized games, like games that are played with our culture, because it resonates more as compared to like just having a game that's from like somewhere in the middle of nowhere in a western desert,
Yeah.
right? So like it doesn't make sense. Um, so yeah, those are really good observations, and yeah, I do agree that it can get reductive if you just focus on like the overall broad thing instead of like making it your niche. So super cool,
Mm-hmm.
super cool. So just to give a shout out, thank you Omi the Ghoul for following, and thank you Nico for joining us. I agree with what you said. Newer folks are coming in, and walls are slowly being broken down. But yeah, the more people that play new games, the more that their openness to it. You know, it's not just limited to the same people playing the game. Totally agree with that. So, the thing that we've all been waiting for. um, Now that we got to know you more, and I really do love getting to know more about the person behind the TTRPG, we're now going to be talking about ARC. Uh, well,
Yay!
we got ARC. Hold on. Gotta make a smooth transition. And then transition. Oh, there you go. So yeah, we're talking about art now. So again, I just checked the Kickstarter, and oh my god, congratulations! I saw it was like at $51,000. Like what?
Yeah.
And more than like 1,200 backers. Like that's
Yeah.
I guess
That is a lot.
yeah, I guess this is part of the list of questions I gave again. Sorry, I'm just curious. How do you feel with like there's so many people that are willing to like back up your game?
Yeah.
Like, what are your general feelings and thoughts about it?
It's super. I want to say like, uh, sorry. Let me get it right. That's like deeply. I really appreciate because I was not expecting this much support, this many backers. As I was like recently saying to my partner, I was gearing myself up for failure, but I didn't prepare myself for success. So now I'm like, I feel a little bit lost. And just to understand the scope of how many that people were, I actually look up like the hometown of my grandpa. It turns out it's like over 2/3 of the people in her hometown. So
Oh
it's like,
wow.
oh no, that is a lot.
Yeah, it is a
That
lot.
is too many people, but it is really nice seeing so much love and support for it.
Yeah. How long have you been working on art, by the way? Like in terms of like the timeline. Like, did it take you
Yeah.
years, months? From conception
Actually,
to Kickstarter.
yeah. Actually, I guess it's good timing because earlier today Facebook showed me a notification like memories from 2 years ago, and it was a post saying, "Hey, just did my first playtest of Arc. People seem to like it. Yay!"
Oh,
So
okay, two
I guess
years.
that's yeah. So I guess I started around June 2019. Then yeah. That tracks.
Happy anniversary! Happy 2 years! Let's go. So, I guess in those 2 years, now that we're talking about art, I guess when we're explaining here to the audience, there might be some who's never played a TTRPG, or
Mhm.
the term OSR is thrown around a lot. So, how
Yeah.
would you explain art to people first on people who never tried a TTRPG and people who have never tried or have not yet tried an OSR game?
All right. Um, what would be the best way? I guess let's start with like tabletop RPGs. Basically, it's a game where you imagine stories with your fellow players, where you take on the guise of personalities as heroes, and you interact with a world of imagination. So you don't actually play with like video game. It's not actually existing beyond you. You create it out of the power of your own mind. So you use it by narrating what your hero does. Or usually there is a player that's traditionally called the game master who says, "Oh, this is the description of the scene. There's gonna be this tree here. There's gonna be this tikbalang. What do you do now?" And then you react, you imagine, and from time to time, when imagination is not enough, when there's a risk, when there's uncertainty, you have to roll some dice. So most of the game is actually just talking, just imagining it together. But when dice starts getting added in, there's like excitement because suddenly it could be in your favor, or your dice roll would fail, the tikbalang would cuss you out, and then make you lost forever in the forest. So that's basically a tabletop RPG, a group story making game with dice rolls
Yeah, that's
and a
cool.
table,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So that's good. Setting up the scene for art. I guess for people who's gonna be hearing ARC for the first time, what's the story like? Or like, what's the
Mm.
general theme, like for ARC?
So Arc is, I guess, fairly unique because it doesn't have a setting technically. So basically, the art, the some of the writing kind of hints at the world, but you are ultimately free to use it for any kind of story you want. So you could have it used for a story about bards crashing their tita's wedding, or you could have it as a story about the plants coming to the Summer Kingdom for the gala, or maybe you're just people fighting a dragon in a dungeon. I wonder where that came from. But anyway, the one thing though tying all of the arc stories together is that there is always a sense of tension, a sense of limited time, and that's because there is one core mechanic that is absolutely ingrained into arc. So every game of arc, this group story making game, has a time limit. So suddenly you don't just have the luxury of talking to the tikbalang all day. You have to be mindful because at the end of the time, something cataclysmic may just happen. And it's usually written as a doom. So literally, if you don't save the world in time, it could end. But again, going back to arc, it doesn't basically force you into a story. So if you say wanted to play as bards crashing their tita's wedding, maybe the doom would actually be the bridesmaid setting the gown on fire. So it there are different levels of levity and seriousness, but ultimately one thing tying them together is the urgency.
That's cool. I did, like when I saw through it, like I saw that there's a there's a time there's a like a there's like a time constraint with the game. Like you would feel something within 30 minutes, within an hour into the game. So that's really interesting because it's a tendency for some games to really just keep going and going and going. It like the time in the world is different from what the time that you're spent, and now that it's like everything's happening in real time is interesting. So, what was the thought process that kind of brought you to making like this kind of Doom-based TTRPG? Like, what inspired you? Like, oh,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna make like I'm just gonna make this. How did you get into that thought process?
Yeah. A part of it was because I felt really anxious. I felt it was difficult to run a game because I didn't know how to pace it. I didn't have a grasp yet on how to have a sense of, oh, dapat here we should already have the climax. So everything should lead up to that point. I was running games. It felt like things would keep happening. There was no sense of momentum, and I was not quite so happy with myself. So I learned about mechanics called clocks, and then I decided to tweak or hack that a bit so that the clock would keep running, there would be a sense of urgency, and I guess that's how arc happened.
Cool, cool. That's and in terms of like the Doom and Doom per se, was this related to the clocks thing, or was there more to like suddenly thinking, oh, things would happen, there would be Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Like how did you get to the concept of Doom in your or like the
Mm-hmm.
apocalyptic proportions? What well, like you said, it could be serious or light, but how did it get there to you thinking about those?
Yeah. Um, I guess when I was trying to imagine a kind of motive that would get people really excited to save the world, thinking of a doom of the end of the world felt like a very natural fit. So that was where I gravitated towards.
Cool, cool. So, uh, I guess with that, uh, with the themes of the doom and apocalypse, you mentioned play tests all the way back to 2 years ago. So I kind
Mm-hmm.
of wanted to like have a bit of story time in the campfire on
Ooh.
like about the gameplay or like an interesting character you've encountered or heard through your system. So, like, have
Mm-hmm.
you heard of like really fun stories revolving them trying to race against the doomsday clock?
Yeah.
You know, do you have any fun stories to share, related to related to art?
I think I'll have to mention PJC. It was actually funny because he was running the game, and I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be like a fantasy adventure. No, he set it on a maritime adventure with like I think pirates or like local naval trade or something like that, and I was like, I didn't design for it in this game. What's gonna happen?
So what happened? What happened to the
So
story, with the pirates and everything?
um it turns out they had fun. I was super still glad because thank goodness it ARC can handle maritime fun. But I've been hearing a couple of other fun games as well. Like we had I knew there was a game where there were wizards in a university and they had a chicken with them, and it was kind of very comedic. I also heard stories how it was used in a very apocalyptic game where it was really tied into the end of the world as they know it. So I really like that sort of hearing the different experiences from people because it's really nice seeing that games actually get played out there.
Yeah, it's super cool. Especially the maritime. That's interesting. What interesting characters have you heard with in terms of the playtest? Because there do be those characters that stick to you. Like, oh my god, there's an
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
character build. Especially when the way your system works is that it has a fun inventory, and the stat system's pretty straightforward. What characters, unique characters, have you encountered with the system?
Mhm. Let's see. I think for unique characters, I've seen people like rock musicians. I've seen that chicken. I've had a friend make a hero that was really attached to a yak. So for some reason there were a lot of heroes that were like tied to strange pets. But I think I myself kind of embrace that strangeness. Like there is a section there called sample characters, right? And the sample characters basically I decided to be a little bit weird with them. So one of the sample characters was actually like an octopus who is a cultist. So I think maybe it might be a bit hard to top that, but I am really looking forward to that.
Oh, that's a sample character. Oops. Uh, that's a sample character. That's really cool. Like that gives me like a Mind Flayer Cthulhu vibes. I like that. I like that. So, how was the we've talked about, like, there's a lot of people that back your Kickstarter. Um, are you able to tell which ones from like the international scene, which local scene, and what's like can you compare like the reception of ARC in the local scene and in the international scene? Like, how did they receive your game?
Mm. The international scene has been, I guess, fairly, fairly supportive. Um, so far, it's been different, like across the U.S. because there's such a wide audience. There's been people who have been really saying, "Oh, just for the art alone, I'm definitely gonna get it." But there's also some people who are like, "Huh, is this an OSR type of game? Does it have mechanics? I want to see the system." Locally, the distinction hasn't been made quite so deeply on like if the mechanics are okay, if it's PBTA style, if it's narrative style. For me, a lot of my own personal marketing is positioning it as successful Filipino RPG, and not a lot of nuance beyond that because personally I'm not exactly sure what would best capture our local imaginations. So reception across local Filipino players has been focusing really on the aspect of like recognized nationality. So it's like kababayan being successful, that sort of thing, which is really different, of course, from the international audience.
Yeah, that's good. At least there's like support somehow, and in terms of like hopefully more there will be more localized games to promote the system, and not just like in the terms of just for like, oh, this is a fellow Filipino, I'll support it, but actually because of the system, because I'm pretty sure you really worked hard on like the mechanics and everything. Oh, by the way, speaking of mechanics, um, there was a mention of like a standard array and random dice
Ooh.
when it comes to the stat system. I guess like there are some like I'm curious in terms of like the randomization. Uh, like how many people did you know that tried the random stuff? Because like I know a lot of people are very hesitant to try everything
Yeah.
random. Like, oh no, I'm gonna get random numbers. I'd rather get something fixed. So what's
Yeah.
the reception for like the random? Because you've also added the random, I believe, as well in the inventory, the sundries,
Mm-hmm.
supplies and sundries. So
Mm-hmm.
how were people's reactions or like you've observed so far in terms of the random aspect of ARC?
Yeah. It, I've met some people who really embrace it. Like, I know there was one who did a live play of it. He said, "Oh, definitely, I'm gonna end up with the random rolls," and that's why his stats were all over the place. But he accepted that with the fullness of his heart. So I think actually the majority of people like to have the random rolls, but also because most of the random tables are kind of, I guess, locked in the full book. We I haven't seen a lot of people use it with just the quick start.
Yeah. All right. But it's a good thing. Like by the way, what just curiosity, why random? What made you go for like the random aspect of it? Like what made you go, oh, I'm gonna put this in my system, this random thing.
Yeah. For me, it was really enjoying a lot of games like OSR where it's like it's gonna present you with a very strange, very unusual scenario. You just have to deal with it. But it makes me feel a bit more creative whenever I manage to find a way around that. So it's like, oh, I managed to solve a neat problem. I feel super proud of myself. And sometimes it's just really weird when the random table gives you things like a pouch full of human teeth. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? And that really spices up an adventure.
Yeah. I do agree. Like, that's why dice systems are super nice because
Mm-hmm.
it's not really like fixed per se. It's still like the luck of the dice and going with what the success or the failure is. So that kind of
Mm.
random generated effect. It's always something that I wouldn't say spices up, but it makes things interesting because you work with what you got, failure or success. So yeah, working with
Yeah.
random stuff is really super cool. So with ARC, I will, if it's okay, I'll be posting the Kickstarter because I think, oh, it's now at 52. Oh, cool. You guys are currently meeting goals. So like stretch
Yeah.
goals. Um, so there's currently, you guys, if you guys get to, I forgot what the other goal was. There was one that would be, actually you guys met 25, 15, 12. If you guys get to 55, there would be a Discord bot with a built-in doomsday
Yes.
clock. That's super cool. And I think you guys are like 3K close, so if you guys want to support the new system, you guys can check out this Kickstarter. There are different bundles for you guys to support this. By the way, how was your experience? I don't know if you're allowed to share, but like I'm curious, like when you worked with a publisher like Exalted Funeral. I'm not sure if you worked with other publishers as well, but what's your general experience that you're allowed to share
Mm-hmm.
working with them? Like, um,
Yeah. It's been they've been super supportive really. It was I think if I remember it was actually them reaching out to me because they are doing a lot of work. They are actually leading a lot of effort reaching out to indie game designers, making sure that their shop, because they sell a lot of RPGs, don't just stock the big names but also the really cool I guess gems that people don't tend to notice. They helped me edit the book. They help me make sure that the Kickstarter is properly set up, and people have been telling me that there were Facebook ads running. So it's like, oh, that's nice.
That's super
So
cool.
it's been really good because it's a good working relationship. It's also opened my eyes to some things like I really wanted gold foil cover, pero I think that would not be very financially sound. So they're also quite experienced with the Kickstarter portion, the business portion, because they've had a lot of successful Kickstarters in the past. All of them were really successful, so I'm glad that I'm like the seventh successful Kickstarter of theirs.
Yeah, it's really cool. Then the art is just amazing, even just on the Kickstarter. It's already showed, and people can actually play with the quick start, right? If ever they just wanted to try out the
Yeah.
system, they could try the quick start. So the quick start and the digital sheets are actually available on the Kickstarter page, so you guys can check that out. It's posted on the Twitch chat. So yeah, um, I guess with as we're closing the segment on ARC, I guess well before we move to the extra portion of it, one thing I wanna ask in terms of ARC is like in terms of the like getting people to like what would they get out of this in terms of playing? Like what would you say they would get out of it beyond just good old fun and the billboard?
So supporting this project basically means being able to get really nice books printed out, but also we do have a an ultimate stretch goal, which is funding free books for 100 people. So if we
Oh,
actually reach that, I don't know if any other RPG has ever done it, but by pitching together, we actually allow more players to play Arc with us, and that's such a really fantastic feeling to have.
yeah, you're giving you're giving away 100. That's cool. 70,000. I think you guys will make it because like you guys already got to 52. And I was just like looking
I
at it
hope so.
earlier. It's like earlier it was 51 and now it's suddenly 52. What? That's super fast. So yeah, I look forward to hopefully that you guys will meet all your stretch goals. And again, congratulations to getting your Kickstarter back. There's a lot of backers, and I might try the system with the kids because it really does sound like a fun thing to try out. And
Mm.
given the openness of it, like you can put any story in it. I've been looking for
Yeah.
that kind of system to try it out. So I'm curious. I'm not sure about the time restraints yet, but it's a new experience. I'm more than willing to try it. So thank you for sharing about ARC. One more thing I wanted to bring up, which is like an extra um, for the stream today. You actually made another TTRPG for ARC. I'm assuming it's before ARC, or the same time. I'm not sure if it was before or after ARC,
I
but
guess in the middle.
yeah, in the middle of things while you were working on ARC, you actually have another TTRPG called
Yeah.
Magus. Um, I actually, when I was reading through your website, because I was like formulating the questions, when I saw it, uh, I was really drawn to the like when it said, I wasn't sure how to pronounce the term for it, which is like sodade.
It's something.
Yes, oh yeah, that's Sodi, which is like profound melancholy. And
Yeah.
Magus, you guys can actually check it out on her website, um, and I think momatoes website. The Magus is there. It's it says it covers the concept of loneliness and profound melancholy, which is like whoa, okay, this is like high level like high concept kind of RPGs. It's like interesting. And the fact that it was solo journaling. So is this meant for a single player? Um,
Yes,
okay.
it is.
So that's very unique because, like, super duper unique because RPGs are very known for cooperative gaming. Like, you play it, you're not just playing by yourself, you're playing it with other people. So I guess it's like, what got you? I mentioned the game, but what drew you into like solo journaling RPG? Like,
Mm,
like what is the thing that
yeah.
appeals to you, or what drew you to it? Like, you like, why do you like it so much?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give you two answers. The first is the marketing answer. The second is the real answer that must never be widely disseminated or told to my publisher. But the marketing answer is solo RPGs offer a lot of creative freedom, like how you express yourself. You could make your journal as short as possible, or you could add art to your journal, or you could really get into the core of your character and really role play it as you write it. And for people who are interested in creative writing, it gives them like the freedom to go all out. And for people who want to role play but feel shy around the group, this is a good practice for them because they could start exploring an imaginary character's feelings without the judgment of others. But the real, I guess, the real kind of stupid answer was it was January of this year. Session Zero Online was happening at the end of the month. It was mid January and I had no idea what I was gonna display for my booth. So I thought, oh no, I can't make a complex game because that's really gonna be hard to playtest. You know what's gonna be simple? A solo journaling game. So from there, it doesn't. It's not like I just decided on the concept on a whim. It was something I've been thinking for a while, but I guess I just waited until the very last minute to actually execute it.
Yeah, that's even so, like, because this is new, I've never encountered it. And despite, like, I understand the feel of like rushing for a concept, because I remembered my experience first ever with Session Zero Con. PJC Paolo posted it on the night that the deadline was the same night. Ah, ah, what is this? And luckily I had something shelved for a long time that I got to like pull out because it was just like bare bones. I ran it for the lulz, and then I ended up being able to flesh it
Yeah.
out for the session zero. So I understand the feels, but at the same time, you mentioned that this is like you were inspired by Thousand Year Vampire and Longing.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Yep.
and since it's like for more of self reflection, this is also like a question I wanted to ask, because our world today, in our world today that likes short tweets and meme-sized captions, like, how do you think writing will appeal to people who like, short-handed answers and stuff like that? Like, how do you think this would appeal to them?
Right. Um, I think for me, what would make it appealing for people with like, I guess, short attention spans or people who find genuine difficulty sitting down and writing a long form is that you can leave it and then you can come back to it when you feel ready. So you don't have to pressure yourself to start writing entry after entry in one sitting. You could think about it the rest of your day, you could organize your thoughts, and if that doesn't work out for you, the actual act of writing here is a suggestion. The ultimate reward really is coming up with a story in your head.
I wanted to ask though, with Magus, like, you mentioned like it's a writing game, so it's like a journal that you write down. It says focus. There are stats here, the four traits like focus, power, control, and scars. How do they come to play in the writing sense? Like, how does it play into, like, because like anybody can just grab a journal and write. How do they
Yes.
play into the mechanic of the writing side of things?
Hmm. So I guess for the player, it's like they guide you in terms of, at what point the the character is at. Like, literally, there is nothing stopping you from ignoring those statistics, but I guess mathematically they do have some influence because they're gonna make the probabilities tougher, they're gonna make your rolls more difficult, and if you ignore it, it's still gonna happen, and somehow that would still have an impact on your character. So it's not really explicitly stated, but as you play through the game, as you see the stats move up or down, you will eventually see that the dice rolls become much more punishing, and that will eventually result in like mechanical punishments during the game, which gets more easily translated into what you want to write for your magus.
Oh, okay. So it's just more or less the dice can affect like it doesn't tell you like prompts on what to write. On or it's does the dice provide some sort of prompt? Because like usually in writing, there's like prompts, right? In the side or something that would provoke some kind of writing. So
Yeah.
do the traits influence the prompt? Is there like a randomizing, or they literally go day by day, and there's a fixed prompt for Magus?
Mm. I see. I think for the magus, what happened is there were prompts, but then there were also like states that this is what will happen, but a complication may arise if your role ends up this way, and then you have to stay what exactly that complication will be. So there is kind of like a seed you're being prompted that this is how it will turn out, but the exact shape of that is ultimately up to you.
Would it be comparable to Tailcraft, like the card game Tailcraft? The
I
way
have never tried that.
it's actually fun. It's a fun exercise. Like you kind of get to pick the villain, the hero, the personality traits, what item is involved, um, those kinds of things, and the theme, the genre of the story. So like
Mhm.
they kind of put it in randomized things in Tailcraft. Because like it kind of
Yeah.
gives me the Tailcraft vibes. Because technically Tailcraft, you're also unless you're doing it with like it can also be done as a group, like a group writing skill. But the people will have
Mhm.
different sets of cards. But I guess this one is like more focused on one player and like they go through the story and start writing prompts. I guess if in similarity to Tailcraft, do you think this can be used outside of gaming, like let's say in a philosophy class? Uh,
Ah, in a
Probably,
philosophy class. Wow.
yeah, because like you're covering about loneliness and
Yeah.
profound
Yeah.
melancholy. Do you think this would be like a
Mm.
good? Because like I've always propagated, or at least I always believe that it's more than just a game. I've
Mm.
used systems outside of like my gaming spheres, um,
Mm.
to help with team building, to help clinical patients, with with their moods, trying to trying to get to know themselves better. So do you think like this particular game can be used outside of the hobby sphere, like a class,
Mhm.
college? Do you think so?
Okay. Um, I think it would be really helpful um for people who want to like immerse themselves in deep feelings that they otherwise wouldn't have space for in their day-to-day life, because sometimes there is, that need to be immersed in sadness or loneliness just to connect to like your emotional core. But at the same time, I'm also conscious that there are a lot of themes in it that may be triggering for some people, so there has to be some kind of care as well, that when you come into this experience, it's really framed as a melancholic, it could be tragic, it could cut you off. There is catharsis in that, but if you come in there with in a quite vulnerable state, that may end up harming you. So just make sure that you know how to step away in case things get too intense.
Oh, curious about like the content warning. Like what are the possible content that without spoiling too much of the of Magus, what are the content warnings? Is there like mentions of what are the graphic trigger warnings for this Magus.
Yeah. And it's not so much as I guess graphic, but really concept of like being abandoned or having to betray people or being betrayed. So these are quite for some people really emotional triggers. This isn't the same as like seeing blood or seeing a decapitated corpse, but it could still be just as harmful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good. At least there's like a. I'm sure like with the session zero stuff, we were listing down all the triggers. So that's interesting to see that there would be like games do have an emotional impact on people, and I think yeah, it's really good. Like the game, the art as well is really good for Magus. Like it's definitely. Usually with TTRPGs, I don't want to do it alone. Like usually, even in a writing sense, like when the one of the difficulties I have with game design is me writing it by myself. I prefer working with others. I prefer doing it with other people. I feel like I excel more with working with someone as to working with myself. Or like at least there's like I can work on things myself, but I think like I'm part of a team or something that would help in terms of like game design. So this is like an interesting this is an interesting concept for solo journaling. And for people who'd like to check it out, Magus RPG. I've also posted the links in the chat. It's under momatoes itch.io, and again, you guys feel free to try it if you guys want to go through some sort of existential crisis by yourselves. So yeah. Um, I do appreciate the time that we had talking about the TTRPGs today. I guess it's like a lovely time now to more or less end and like proper like formally end the show. I do appreciate
Yeah.
that we got to meet, and I am happy that you got to create your game designs. Like I feel like ARC is probably like the new like is it safe to say that it's the new Powered by the Apocalypse? I feel so. I feel like it's
I don't know yet. I'd be happy, but also I think I will need to lie down for a while if that ever does
like
happen.
oh no, that's my head.
You
So
will for me.
yeah, so all this talk about the games that you've created, designing games and all that sort. I usually leave this segment of takeaways as to end the show. What are the final words, last thoughts that you'd like to impart to our listeners, to our audience about the things we've talked today? So that's one. And like some words of wisdom that you can leave to aspiring game designers and artists. Uh, so I'll leave the floor for your for your words for takeaways.
All right. So for me, my takeaway would be we did talk about like communities and cultures and making sure that it is welcoming. For me, what is absolutely important is making sure that we keep having that idea of being open, of welcoming new ideas, no matter even if you think that it's weird or if it's strange, as long as it is genuinely coming from a place of not harming anybody, if it's in good faith, let's try to explore new ideas and perspectives. And also for me, let's something difficult for me was acknowledging that we want representation of us, but we also I also want to make sure that when I think of other people, I don't see them as a homogeneous mass of blobby people. They're also their own distinct people. For game designers, I guess for me it's keep on creating, keep on connecting with other people, and if there's so many sources of inspiration out there, you don't need to spend all your time reading on mechanics. You could go out to a museum, you could read a book, and from there you can still pick up mechanics ideas. It's funny how those things works, but if you limit yourself to one type of inspiration, your game design may not flourish as much. So I think that one is my important takeaway.
Thank you so much for those lovely takeaways. Totally agree with the community aspect and as well as getting inspiration from everywhere. Again, congratulations to ARC with the backers and the successful Kickstarter. I hope you guys get to 70 so that more people will get to know about ARC. And
Yeah.
for people, check out the Kickstarter campaign, and I believe you also are trying out Twitch. You're doing your art stuff on Twitch as well, so feel free to check her
Mhm.
out there as well. I'm not sure what times you stream. Is it like, do you have like a daily schedule, or is just like once in a while you'll drop by for some streams? I'm not sure what
It's
you're.
usually once in a while, but I think I will try to aim for this Saturday.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, feel free to go to her channel, momatoes, twitch.tv momatoes. She might stream this Saturday with her art. Again, thank you so much for the time that we got to talk. I'm really happy I got to know you through Paulo, and I'm glad we got to do this thing and talk about art and all the things you've done. And I look forward to seeing more of the things you will do with TTRPG, art, and everything in between. Something to look forward to. And guys, check out tomorrow. Tomorrow is the return of This Is the Way, Star Wars, the Star Wars Fantasy Flight Edge of Empire campaign. We might be exploring more of the Mandalorian story, Canderon Fett. That will be tomorrow at 11 p.m. So feel free to check that out, and I'll try to do more streams this week because I missed a bit of the streams in the last 2 weeks beyond TTRPG talks on Mondays. So yeah, just a bit of a plug-in. And again, guys, check out Mamato's Kickstarter. Let's get her to that 70k goal, and as well as check out Magus and her itch.io and her Twitch. And again, thank you guys for joining us this Monday night. And thank you again, Mama Toes, for a lovely
Thank you so
conversation.
much.
So
Yep, me too.
we're gonna be putting out the campfire now, and I'll see you guys next stream.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.